Hello, everyone. This is Kyle Worrell, principal of Hares Hill Elementary School, with my friend Ryan Palmer, who is also a parent of our school. Ryan is also a high school teacher and has his PhD in educational psychology. And we are thrilled to bring you a recap of our second parent book club session. There's a lot of S's there, Ryan. And what we talked about, just to recap, because it's been a while, we've started an initiative here at Hares Hill with some of our community members of talking about navigating the world of technology with our students and our children. And we're using the book, The Anxious Generation, as our guide. We had our second session quite a long time ago, so Ryan and I definitely just did a little bit of recapping here. It was in the end of November, and we're bringing this to you so you can keep up if you like. And also, if you are comfortable, you're welcome to come to our next session, which is at the end of January. And look in the parent newsletter for the exact date because I didn't write it down. Do you remember when it was? I didn't write it down.
Is it the 27th?
I think it was the 27th as well. But more updates will be, it's actually right above this little posting, so you'll know the exact date and time. But we had a great session. And I think before we start the recap, it's funny, we should have probably just turned the microphone on when you walked in because we were talking about group chats and how we've noticed some group chats popping up with some kids at school. Ryan mentioned in a grade or two, I mentioned that I saw it. I had some conversation with some kids, and I think it's just another example of why we want to be on top of this, why we want to continually talk to our kids and monitor things so we're on top of navigating this technological world and the interaction of our students with it. So here's what we're going to do. Ryan and I are going to kind of recap Chapter 2 and Chapter 3 high level, just so everybody's on the same page with the book club. And we're just going to talk about some of the discussion things that we did in the last session, so you can follow along. And again, if you're following along at home and just staying at home, that's amazing. If you want to come along and join the conversation live in our evening sessions, they start around 6:30, and the next one is, we think, January 27th.
It's
Tuesday, whatever that Tuesday is of that week. Then we would love to see you there too. We had 10-ish people there. Yeah, we always tell somebody to bring a friend, so maybe next time we'll have even more, but who knows. So I'm going to throw it to Ryan here, who's going to talk a bit about Chapter 2, and then I'll pick up with Chapter 3, and then we'll have some discussion. Go ahead, Ryan.
The group chat was a really great launching pad into the review of what Chapter 2 is all about. Chapter 2 is really discussing childhood and what childhood naturally is like, dating back from the earliest points of when we were all children to back through history. And biologically, it starts with this slow growth. The author, Jonathan Haidt, talks about how we are big-brained and small-bodied weaklings. That's on page 50. And we really develop 90% of our neurological development by the age of 5, and then it just is slow. That is because we need the rest of that time to learn how to socialize, to play. And before technology, the way that we did this best was through free play. We've talked about this a lot. We both are big believers that free play is really important. And in this free play, you have repeated activity with feedback from success and failure in a low-stakes environment. And that's why group chats and these things like that actually can be really harmful, because it's not a low-stakes environment. You make a mistake there, everyone sees it, and it's there forever potentially. So just keeping with that theme. The free play, as we've seen, one of the topics in the book is how much it has dropped off. Starting with 2005, they found that this massive decline in minutes per day from over 2 hours to less than an hour now. And that coincides with a massive rise of screen time. So that's one of two of the features in this chapter. Another deep feature around this development is what's called attunement. Attunement is something, and I remember really well, we talked about this in the group chat, is the question was, what shows did you watch as a family? And because when I was growing up, it was almost every Tuesday night was American Idol. I remember when American Idol came out.
Yep.
I don't know if that was something what point you were in your family life with American
For sure.
Idol.
American Survivor.
Survivor.
I'm a little older, so Survivor for sure. But I think recently, maybe a lot of families watching Stranger Things.
Yes, of course.
I did it with my college kids, and us watched it. It was like a whole thing over the holidays.
So that is actually really important for child development. This idea that you're doing things with your family collectively. And before, it was something rather common. People would have dinner together, people would watch the shows together, people would listen to music together. And they found that the more that you have this synchronized activity, it builds stronger attachment, it builds better coping, more emotional regulation. And what's happening, we see, is that phones put you in your own small encapsulated universe, and you are taken out of this synchronized experience where people are listening to their own music. Now, right when we had this session, Spotify put out their Spotify Wrapped, which if you're unfamiliar with, tells you how much music you listen to for how many minutes. And I teach high school, and I'll tell you, I was blown away. I had one student that had listened to 200,000 minutes of music in 2025.
That's wild.
200,000 music, that's almost 300 days. Wow. Of music. And just imagine how insulated you are at that point and what that means for your development, right? So we slow growth, free play, attunement, and social learning. This comes with attunement. This is copying and the people around you. And what's really important here is that before social media, you followed people that were prestigious. And prestige was earned by doing things of what we deem socially as worthy of being followed, right? So maybe you had a hero, and that hero was your hero because maybe was an athlete, maybe was a writer, maybe was an artist, someone in your community. But prestige has been somewhat hijacked now by social media, by influencers who are charismatic perhaps, but really they have very little... well, how could we say it diplomatically? They have little to be prestigious
Not
for.
Great models for our kids. How's that?
There's nothing that they're doing that you need to replicate, right? They're just people online that have a lot of followers. And so this is something that has changed. In the book, they call it a decoupling of excellence and prestige, which I thought that was a really... fantastic way.
I can certainly relate to that because my first year as a principal, there was that TikTok trend. It was even worse in high school. You probably remember there was that TikTok trend that whoever they were going into bathrooms and they were taking them apart, and they would steal the mirror and they would take the sink. And we didn't have anything of that scale at the middle school, but I think that definitely goes. These folks had so many followers, so much prestige, but certainly not models that we want our students to be. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. It was
awful.
It was really frustrating to walk into the bathroom and not have a door.
Yes.
So with prestige comes confirmation bias, and this is the idea that students, young people, are really, really good at picking up trends and knowing, I need those boots, or everyone has this backpack. What happens is before, there was this sort of organic... You would learn this slowly, but with social media, what the book says is that you, in 3 hours, learn 1,000. You get 1,000 data points around confirmation that you would have never seen, and it's usually confirmation in such a way that leads you to doubt yourself. I need to be more. I need to have this look. I need to have this body. I need to act like this, and so it's once again decoupling. It says here, the most efficient conformity engines ever invented, and it's usually forcing you to conform to something that might not be in line with your best interests.
That was one of the most impactful, and I wish I knew what page it was on, but the portion of the book that talked about how quickly that is formed with the rise of likes, and how as parents, we might tell our kids something, we see that 3 times a day, 4 times a day, but with the rise of likes and loving things on Instagram and so forth, they're getting that confirmation 300 times right after they post in the first hour, and to dramatic impact. And it felt like you're almost fighting a losing battle when the kids are on their phone the whole time. That was really impactful.
There is that sense, and we kind of touched on this sense of you are fighting this onslaught of data, and you don't even are aware of it. It's somewhat insurmountable alone.
Yes.
The last portion of development is that this is a sensitive period, which we've already kind of thought about. Yeah. So that is the recap of the second chapter.
Yeah.
Mr. World, take it away for chapter 3.
Yeah, so chapter 3 is discover mode and the need for risky play. I grew up in the 80s, man. I feel like I defined, I think I defined risky play with some of the things we used to climb and so forth. Never broke a bone, though. I probably jinxed myself. But, there's a few key ideas that are touched upon. We are presently, in the present day, we are overprotecting our children in the real world while underprotecting them online. That's something that we have come back to over and over and over. And I'll go back to the commercial that we talked about, and I think we talked about it in the last podcast. That commercial of like, hey, don't play out in the yard past this time, don't stay out this late. But then you have a child in their room with a phone, unaccompanied, and they literally have access to the entire world. So that was on page 68, and I thought it was a great point that we're overprotecting our children in the real world while underprotecting them online. And it talks about the need for kids to have risky play. And there's a balance there, of course, but the kids, they seek that risky play, the thrilling and exciting forms of play that involve a risk of, maybe injured, maybe not, the climbing heights, running quickly, that rough and tumble play, that is healthy. Obviously, we want balance there, but it is healthy, and things that we want our students to do. And it also gets into the rise of safetyism. And safetyism is a culture or belief system in which safety has become a sacred value, which means that people become unwilling to make trade-offs, demands by other practice and moral concern. Like, in short, like, we are going to keep you 100% safe at all times, and really take away freedom for the kids to kind of make their own choices, make some mistakes. Again, all within reason,
The book had this really fantastic image of this playground where the teachers were the school was so nervous about the rules. I think it was the rules of tag.
Yes.
Where it said, only run, or it was like this long list of how to play tag to make it safe. And it just was dripping with so much fear that it took all of the joy out of the game.
No rules of tag here at Hares. I'll say that. But that also sometimes leads to conversations, which is a good thing, right? That's a good thing because kids make mistakes sometimes, and parents, maybe some parents are listening, they communicate it to us and we have conversations and it allows the kids to grow. Other times, maybe the kids are taking care of it on their own, and there's development there, right? There's learning there, and it allows the kids to grow, which I think is really, really important. That risky play, and if I had to summarize those two chapters, it's free play and risky play. And that's what we got into with the discussion. I think the one thing to note with free play is when the kids are just playing. I think a lot of times we think when my kids played travel baseball, and I had my youngest, did cross country competitively, structured practice where they're told exactly what to do and how to do it actually does not count as free play. And when I looked at the numbers and the data on that first page, it's certainly due to technology, but I also think it's certainly due to the travel team culture that we have nowadays, which, by the way, is not bad. I think, again, it just goes back to balance. So, it's funny, we did a lot of the discussion questions. Did I miss anything on chapter 3, first of all?
No, I think last time we put this disclaimer on, I think it would be good to say again, is that this is a process we're all learning.
Yes.
To try to navigate, and we're not doing it right. I had my fourth grader come home and report to me like all my friends are in a group chat, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's starting. Right? And I struggled, and I think wherever you are, if you imagine this on a spectrum as no phones to I already gave my kid a phone.
Right.
We're not passing judgment here. We are just trying to figure it out and look at what we think are the signposts leading to what will be the best for our kids long term. And that kind of launched us into some of these discussions of, okay, where is the line? And one of the book talked about the difference between a bruise and a scar. And and that is really, really hard to find sometimes.
Yes.
Because, okay, do I give my kid a phone because I'm scared of them walking home alone, and I need to know where they are?
Right.
Or is it okay perhaps for them to have some independence there? And that can get really scary and hard to navigate.
It does. I do like the concept of it because it goes back to balance, right?
Yeah.
What do I want to do with this? How much time? Yes, it's serving the purpose of being able to track them and so forth, which is important, especially if they're traveling long distances. But should I give them free reign to this all the time? So we definitely talked about that. A lot of discussion about the neighborhood. Remember we were talking about that? And like what age, and that was this part right here.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So go ahead.
This gets to this balance idea, and this gets really difficult. I feel this tension, and I think it's a learned, you have to relearn it. I think we've been wired to move a certain way, but here's how it goes. So the question, answer this in your head. At what age would you deem it appropriate for your child to have unsupervised play in the front yard? So what number is that? The average right now, nationwide, I think this is the Pew Research, said that it's 10 years old. Is that what we said?
Yes.
Which struck me as just very old.
Yes.
And I remember when we first went through this, it's a real learning experience. So here's the next one. At what age do you deem it appropriate for your child to stay home alone? Collectively, our culture says 12. I think I'm there with 12. I agree with 12.
I agree.
And
this is the one here for me.
At what age is it appropriate for your child to go to a public park alone? Collectively, we say 14.
Now, I think with all of these, obviously your geography matters.
See, yeah.
Right.
I
so
just said I'm a Spanish teacher.
That's
my default.
Unsupervised play in the front yard. If you're on your front yard 724.
Yeah.
For sure. Right. So I think when we're talking about that, it's like
where are we talking?
Exactly.
We have to be mindful.
A public park or so forth. But it was interesting. And look, again, everybody's got a different number. I think and it's interesting to see the averages because you just kind of see where you fall, which kind of measures it.
But one thing that I think we arrived at was that these numbers have crept up over time. And the reason behind this is, and this is one of the questions, is the world more dangerous now? And it's not that it's more dangerous, it's that we are far more aware of the things that are there. Probably the same number. There's not an objective number. We didn't agree that this is necessarily true, but what we think is happening and what data probably confirm is that there are not more monsters lurking in the corner now. It's just that we have very, very big flashlights illuminating everything, making us very, very aware. And so it heightens our fear.
And odds are some of those, I'm using air quotes right now, monsters probably have more access to our children on their phones. Right?
That is the key.
And again, it was just interesting conversation to think about that. And when you're trying to make decisions between free play and risky play and the benefits of that compared to putting a device in a student's hand. So very interesting discussion points as well. I think we'll wrap up with the last one because this was, what steps can be taken to strengthen our community. I remember, and I like that we went back to that public park discussion. I remember talking about in my neighborhood, we had a park at the top of the hill. I let my kids go up there pretty young, younger than 14. I don't know exactly how young, but they were pretty young. But before we did that, we walked them up there and we knew some people in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And it was like, hey, here's the Burke's house. And we knew the Burkes and hey, here's the Aikens house and here's and they had points and it almost became a community that allowed our kids and there was this whole like basketball thing up there and so forth, which was total free play and was a great thing. Yeah. But I think what are your thoughts about that? Steps to strengthen your community. To me, it's communication. It's getting out and meeting folks and talking about this. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think even before I say that, the reason why this is so important is because if you fear everyone around you, of course you're going to give your kid a phone.
Yeah.
Because the world is then full of danger. But if you start to take that step to allow your child to go out and maybe ride up the street and play with a friend, you start to get more comfortable with your community, and you start to know the parents around there. Then they start to know your child. So for me, I think I'd follow the same advice. Take that first risk. Be uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable. And of course, like we said, be aware of the geography. Don't allow them to ride their bike down, 422.
Right.
But I think it is reaching out. You have to be the agent that creates that community, and it's not easy.
And I think when you look at these chapters 2 and 3, the growth that the kids get when they're able to go through these experiences is powerful. Yeah. It's powerful. So I thought this set a really good foundation for some of these really important points in childhood that we're going to build upon in future sessions. What's coming up? We get into chapter 4 and 5, where we then start taking a look at how phones kind of take away these pieces we talked about, right? And then after that, the book gets very interesting in what steps. And again, I think, no judgment here on anybody that's doing anything. We're all just trying to figure this out as we go. But we have a lot of exciting things coming up. Looking forward to our next conversation on January 27th. And looking forward to seeing more folks there. And if you can't make it, just keep looking at the newsletter, click on this, and we'd love to have you listen to us.
Yep, we can't do it alone. I believe this is something that we change at a grassroots level, and then we can build from there. And if we change our small community here, it can really have a domino effect. So please come.
Yep, love it. All right, thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.